What's going on, family? Welcome back to another video. Honestly, this is kind of a continuation from the previous video, talking about how your mindset is your greatest weapon. Well, in this video, we're going to be talking about how your mindset can be your greatest enemy as well. And when we talk about enemy, what exactly is an enemy, right? An enemy is an opposition, right? Somebody who doesn't have your best interest at heart. Somebody who, you can say, is preying on your downfall, right? An enemy can be a rival, right? Somebody that you're competing with, somebody that you're clashing with. Your mind can be all of those plus more. And what do I mean by this is that, right, in the previous video, we talked about how through evolution, we had to focus on the negative, but also what most people don't realize is that there's two entities that live inside your brain at all times, right? We have the Christ consciousness, right? Where you could say the positivity, you can say the yin side of things, right? The good moral side, right? That positive thought, that positive voice that you hear. And then we have the opposition, right? Then we have the negative influence, or you can say the dark side or the yang side, right? Both living in our minds. You could think about it, literally two beings or two animals living in your mind. And what happens is, as you start feeding either animal more content that fuels that animal, the stronger that animal becomes. Inevitably, so much to the point where that animal can't control you, right? Let's say you have two wolves, right? You say you have a good wolf and a bad wolf, a white wolf and a black wolf, right? Well, maybe that might not be the best context for it. Let's say your mind is like, a good instance is, let's say you keep feeding the bad aspect, right? The bad animal, right? That's living inside you. What happens is that you're making him stronger by feeding him negative thoughts, by feeding him negative habits or negative actions. You're making him stronger. And what happens is, by making him stronger, he gains more control and more space in your mind, right? Literally. A good book which is titled Outwitting the Devil is the devil. What he does is that he literally influences us to go out and seek those negative things, those negative habits or those negative influences, because what it does is that it makes him stronger. It makes him easier for him to control us. It makes it easier for him to feed us more negative thoughts and plant more negative habits into our lives to deter us from reaching our goals. He literally uses your mind as a weapon against yourself. And most people don't know this. Most people don't recognize that thought when it comes into their mind, telling them to do something that they know that they shouldn't. A lot of people think that's just their own consciousness talking to them, but in reality, it's actually, right, not to get religious, not to get spiritual, it's actually the negative being that lives inside you, right? You can say, i.e. the devil, or you can say, the yang side, or you could say your darker self, right? That is a good representation of it, or your darker self, because we all have that light in us and we all have that darkness in us. It doesn't matter if you're Gandhi, it doesn't matter if you're MLK, it doesn't matter if you're Mother Teresa. They all have the light and the dark living inside of them. And the reason why we have that living inside of us is because we cannot literally exist into this world without having both. We cannot know love until we experience hate. We cannot know what peace is until you've experienced war. You cannot know what darkness is without experiencing light, and vice versa. You cannot know what light is until experiencing or going through the darkness. And God, the divine creator, the universe, it designed it this way. So now we can have not only the freedom of choice, right, which is free will, to choose between the light or the dark, but for us also to be appreciative of the light when it comes into our life, to be appreciative of that love when it comes into our life, because we've experienced hate. We know what hate is like. We know what ridicule is like, right? A kid living in nothing but poverty, right? He won't know what it's like to be rich, or he won't appreciate the riches when they come if he never experienced poverty. This is why you see a lot of people who are born into rich and wealthy families. They don't have appreciation of the money, and somehow they end up sometimes even blowing the family wealth because they never had a chance of experiencing what it's like to be in poverty, or what it's like to be on the other side of the economic scale. So what happens is that your mind, it hijacks that need to know both. It hijacks it, and what it does is that it starts pulling you down and drowning you in the darkness. So much so that now you have no control of your mind. Just like a dog that's untrained, right? What does a dog that's untrained does when it sees another dog? It starts barking, starts root, 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 root. It can't control itself, right? And that's just like the mind when it doesn't have when you don't have a strong, firm grip over it, right? It's like an uncontrollable animal that's just barking at anything and everything that it sees. You see what I'm saying? Your mind is literally, imagine, right? There's this video or this audio. It's called The Strangest Secret in the World. And the strangest secret is that most human beings, we do not think. Right? We do not use our mind for constructive and positive ends. In the audio, he says that imagine your mind as a giant tractor trailer, or a giant, yeah, that's good, a giant tractor trailer. And imagine you're the person in the driver's seat guiding this big tractor trailer, right? That's how your body and that's how your mind is, right? Your mind might be the smallest muscle in your entire body in comparison to everything else, but it controls everything else, every other aspect of the body. Your mind, not the brain. The brain is an organ, right? The brain is an organ. The mind is the spiritual and energetic field that lives inside of the brain. You see what I'm saying? Right? So that's why your mind can become your greatest enemy, because if you do not positively and constructively control it, your mind will start telling you to do the things that aren't conducive to your own growth. And you've probably experienced that for most of your life, because that's how most people are. Since they don't teach us the power of our mind, they don't teach us how important a positive mindset, discipline, consistency, right? Stoicism. Since they don't teach us how powerful these things are, we just go about life, right? Not having no control of our mind, just letting anything and everything come into it. And what happens is, right, through the law of hypnotic rhythm, if you do not consciously protect yourself from these negative things that are coming into your life, right, what happens is they start influencing you. Most supervillains, right, they think that they're in the right. They think that they're correct. They think that their motive is intrinsically good. They have a means to the method, right? So your mind does the same type of thing. It kind of tricks you into thinking that the way that you're thinking is positive. It tricks you into boosting up your ego. So now when other people try and tell you, oh, you should think about things like this, or, oh, this might be a better endeavor for you, or, oh, maybe you should be a little bit more careful about this, or, oh, what happens is that your mind, it boosts your ego, and ego, EGO, it stands for edging God out. It boosts your ego, and what that happens is that now you start blocking your blessings, right? And I don't need to listen to that. I don't need to take that advice. And then what happens? You get bit in the butt for it afterwards. And the reason why is because your mind tricked you. You see what I'm saying? Right? How many people do we know that are struggling with addiction, and their mind is talking them through the addiction and talking them into going and doing the addiction again, even though they know and they promised themselves this was the last time they were going to drink. Right? This is the last time they were going to snort this line. right? This is the last time they were going to heat up this bowl, right? How many people do we know have made conscious decision to quit, but their mind has tricked them by telling them, oh, you could quit tomorrow. Oh, no, it's not that big of an issue. How many relationships do we know where people have talked themselves into sabotage, or thought themselves into sabotaging the relationship by either not taking accountability, by being defensive, right? Or by projecting onto the other person. A lot of times it's not about the situation that you're in, but it's about how you're viewing the situation. So that's why if you do not make conscious effort to protecting your mind and make conscious effort that when those negative thoughts come into play, start analyzing them, right? Another good book that I highly recommend is The Power of Now. And I believe in chapter 2, actually in chapter 1, right, after the introduction, they talk about that your mind, you are not your mind. You are not your mind, and your mind is not you. Your mind is just this energetic field of electromagnetic frequencies that goes on in your brain that helps you make decisions, right? That helps you communicate with a higher being, right? Whether it's your higher self, whether it's Allah, whether it's God. That's what your mind is. Your mind is used as a radio tower to communicate, right? That's why we have dreams. That's what your mind is for. Your mind is to be used for constructive purposes. But the enemy hijacks our minds and turns our frequency, turns our dial tone, instead of it's on 97, he tweaks it to 83 on purpose. And when it's on 83, what happens is that now you only are able to receive news and information from 83, and 83 is nothing but negativity. All right. So that's why you have to break into the radio station, kick whoever the person is off of the seat, right? And it's probably your darker self. It's probably a person that you put into that seat without even giving him the approval. He just took the seat because you weren't watching. You have to kick him off of the seat, and you have to consciously turn that dial tone from 83 back to 97, back to positivity, back to growth, right? Back to ambition, purpose. That's what you need to do, right? That's what you need to do. And it first starts by recognizing these things. It first starts by recognizing the power of your mind. It first starts by recognizing that you have two beings living inside of you at all times. One positive, one negative. We all seen that show. We all seen back in the day, right? When somebody would have to make a decision, an angel will pop up on one shoulder and a devil-like figure will pop up on the other. That's real. That is real life. And whoever you listen to more, what you're doing is that you're not only are you boosting up the ego for either side, but you're strengthening and reinforcing that way of thinking, right? So you have to be conscious at all times. And even if you make a negative decision, or even if you think negative, it's never too late to revert it and to change it. And what happens is the more you keep reverting, the more you keep constantly trying to think positive, the more you consciously try and focus on the good outcomes out of life, is that you're kind of putting up a fight. You're struggling against that devil-like being. You're making it harder for him to influence you next time. You're making it harder for him to plant those negative thoughts, to sneak them in through the back door. You're making it harder for him. And what happens, right? The devil, he's a really good showman, but guess what? He doesn't have persistency. He's an easy quitter. So the more you struggle, the more you start fighting back, the harder it is for him to hold his reign, keep his control over you, to the point where he's like, you know what? This man is too hard to deal with, man. I'll move on to somebody else. But guess what's going to happen? By more people tapping into this YouTube channel, the devil's going to find it harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to control more and more people. So much to the point where he has nobody else left to control, nobody else to influence, nobody else to manipulate. But it first starts by one person at a time, first starts by one mindset at a time, and it starts by us also helping other people, right, think more positive. And it also starts by us helping our neighbors, helping other people, and try guiding them to thinking more positive, right? Start guiding them to start using their mind as a weapon, as a tool, and not let it become your enemy. It's your mind. Either you control it or it will control you. And with that being said, right, thank you for tuning into this episode, right? Till the next one, I'm out.